You're listening to The Podcast. For grain merchandisers, by grain merchandisers. Join us in our good-humored attempt to serve as a voice of reason in an industry fraught with misconceptions and half-truths. And now, from deep in America's heartland, this is The Elevator's Cut.
Welcome back to another episode of The Elevator's Cut. I am one of your hosts, Jason Wheeler.
And I am the other host, Roger Gattis.
And today, we're back. We have warm weather is here.
That's why we have short pants.
Yeah, but Randy's assured us he will not go below the equator on the video feed here.
Thank God.
So, I mean, it couldn't be better. It's warm out. It's golfing weather. It's softball weather. My
planting weather.
Yeah, I mean, it's going really good. But
sometimes
South is all planted by now. But yeah, the big part of the country's going big style at the moment.
In between rains, yeah, that's good. I don't know, people burning up over this way and then they're flooding out over this way. It's all normal.
You just, like anything, you got the USDA numbers. Take that to the bank, and we know exactly what everything's going on. And I saw a chart that says we're ahead of the median for corn planting for this time of year. Did you see that chart?
No, but I will say I did use, make sure I'm getting this right, artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
I used AI, is what the kids are calling it.
Which one?
Yes.
Okay.
And the AI. Annie Avatar, I think, was her name. Anyway, I used AI to dig up some NAS information. Have you ever been on the NAS website?
Mm-hmm.
It's terrible. It's just so much stuff.
It was great when I had to dig stuff up for college. It was
yeah, well, that's
a fun time.
80 years ago. But
yeah.
It's got more pages now. Anyway, to see, because I had a customer say, it feels like there's always this, we get more acres in if the planting's ahead of pace, which makes sense, right? Guys are going.
Or corn acres.
Yeah. They just, the weather's good, it's going, we'll just put a few more acres in. And at least went back to like 2014 and, compared the intentions report from the, March or whatever of that year, the June report on the acres, and then what the final number was or something like that. I forget what it was. But anyway, it's not 100% correlation, but nothing is, right? Probably. But this one was pretty close. There was only a couple outliers out of, 12 years or something. But generally speaking, if we're ahead of pace, by this time in May, that was the other key part, where we're at in this time in May, not June, it was May. How do we do? Well, we tend to get more.
More acres.
More acres. Doesn't mean it's harvested. It just means more acres.
There was already forecasted a lot of corn acres this year, right?
Yeah, so we might have more of more.
More of more.
So the idea of getting back to the south, in places, the southeast anyway, it sounds like the places that did get planted, I know some places battling rain, but 8 to 10% higher acreage on corn than was planted 2 years ago, and 2 years was a record for them. So
yeah,
at least there. I know you get into the mid-south Delta area. The rains have been hindrance a little bit. They might have got the acres in, but the corn's not looking all that great because all the water, unless you got it planted really early. So, a hot, dry summer would not be great for the roots on that. But and then you get going up here, Kansas City, I think they're getting planted and stuff's looking good. You go north of here and then they're talking about it's too dry, and then it loops back around to the east. It gets too wet again. So, it's normal.
It's good. We're in for, so typically sometime May, June is when we see a little weather rally. So we're, got our fingers crossed.
It's time to do it. It's time for something to die.
Mm-hmm. That's what farming's all about, dying.
It absolutely is.
So
you can't
something will die, and
you have to. It has to die to have life.
That's right. Life-giving agriculture.
Death.
That's what we do. Yeah, via death. Give life via death. Randy gets it. So, anyways.
Yeah. So that's where things are at right now. Big topics, obviously, old crop corn spreads. People are losing their minds on it, but, that's nothing new.
Yeah, so July is the nearby month now, and it's July to Sep. Sep's new crop for the South, and Dees is definitely new crop for everybody. So, typically this time of year when we have the shorter crop, you see an inverse, which we've had an inverse for a while in that spread, but now it's getting
since
volatile.
August or something.
Since it's the nearby, it's really getting jostled around a bit, and people are excited.
Well, you jostle people, they get excited.
People
That's
are
what
excited. Some people want it to go big. Some people want it to go small. Some people want to take the chart, flip it upside down, like this guy. Whatever you need to do.
It's amazing. It's definitely a tell on that kind of thing of who's ever drawn a basis chart by hand or not.
Yeah.
Tell me you're a basis trader by how you view this chart. And it's pretty telling on that when you get comments. But hey, it is what it is, right? I mean, I know how basis math works. Plus and minuses don't always make sense. If there's
right.
anything about merchandising,
Well,
it's that regular math doesn't make sense.
So it's which one you're subtracting from which one. That's really the only difference.
Yeah, it's order of operations.
Yeah. PIMDAS.
Okay, never heard of her.
That happened once. Yeah, but like Roger's saying, the basis trader thing, we think of a carry being a positive thing. The next month's higher than the previous month's, a positive thing. But if you look at just a strict spread chart that the
Quote.
CME will put out or quotes, they list those as negatives because they're subtracting the different ones.
Like right now, they would be taking the July from the September to get that number. Whereas if you're going forward in time, which I think all of us, with the exception of Marty McFly, does, you have to go from July to Sep. And to do so on a chart, if this is 1 month on a basis chart, it's got to be, you count up for a carry, not down. So anyway, that's where people get confused on it, and it's not their fault. They're not basis traders.
So here's was my counter argument to you basis trader types at White's Commercial, which, by the way, White Commercial, thanks for sending the hat to me. So anyways. The CME, how they quote it, is so a carry is a negative number. This is so interesting. Sometimes I
really
forget people are listening to this, and I'm like, we shouldn't even be talking about this.
I agree with that.
How boring is this? Well, hopefully you got it sped up to 1.5 times, and we'll get through it. This will be quick, but I promise.
Not quick enough.
So I promise that a lot. But anyways, we go from July 7th. So a carry would be a minus, a negative number on a CME quote, right? On the quote screen. It'd be a negative number. So the reason I like it is it's aspirational. And if you know me, I'm all about being aspirational, right? Because if you think about it, there's a limit to how much a carry can get. It can only get so big, and it'll be arbitraged out or whatever the professors say. But an inverse can go on forever. So if you think about it in terms of the CME chart, it can only get so negative, but it can go as high as you want it to when you're looking at it that way. So it's very aspirational, and so I appreciate it from that standpoint.
That's wonderful.
And
that's a very great perspective.
Yeah, I think it helps no one. So
I
I'm
agree.
glad we spent that time discussing it. So
you may have more stuff to say about this spread.
I just don't.
Okay, I've got one last thing, and this got to come out. This was a Phil thing, but it's whether the
fuel thing,
Phil thing, Phil,
okay. All right.
Our employer,
okay,
whether the spread is specifically speaking July 7th, it applies to any spread. The spread is a 10-cent inversion, a 50-cent inversion, or a 2-cent carry. The market's pretty much telling you the same thing, just at a different level of volume, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Don't
different
carry grain.
intensity.
Just get out of this stuff. Get rid of it, so.
Shame on you for having any grain. However, we keep seeing pictures of places with lots of grain.
But then we're tricked, and it's Milo piles, which I don't know who the trick is on, me or the person that's piling Milo still right now. It's Milo. 2, it's right in front of an inverse.
Yeah. Well, and from the merchandiser standpoint, we don't know if it's on storage and they can't move it.
This was in western Kansas, so
it's on
high
storage.
probability it was almost all storage.
Bless their heart. Anyways, all right. So moving on, if I may,
you may.
Do I have your permission to move on?
Yeah, we got time.
Okay, good.
Barely.
So next on our agenda was the terminology of that people use, and Roger's schooled me on this over the years that has really helped my perspective. So thanks, Roger. everybody's playing a different game, right? So it's easy to look at things through our lens and say that is crazy because that is not how we do it.
Right.
Well, that's fine because they're not trying to do it like we're doing it.
Right. Something different.
But this is our podcast, so we tell people
when they're
our
wrong.
lens,
Yeah.
about what we think. And what I'm saying is, I guess it doesn't mean that somebody else is wrong for thinking of things a different way. They probably are.
Yeah, let's just face it. It probably is.
But they may be playing a different game completely that I don't even know about.
They may not even know what game they're playing. And we encounter that all the time.
That happens a lot. So anyways, I was running into this thing because we talk about grain merchandising. So at the grain elevator, it's like, hey, we got to be price neutral. We got to trade basis. We got to be merchandisers. Buy basis, sell basis, spreads. That's our thing, Everything's hedged. We don't have price risk. We have basis risk, and we trade basis. So we want to be basis traders. And so if you go to somebody who may be trading grain from lots of different levels, they may be a classic grain elevator, but a lot of times it's like, I farm. Maybe I'm a user of some sort, whatever. Our slant is if there's going to be space involved, for sure, there's a return to that space, and it's in the basis and the spreads.
Mm-hmm.
And there's basis return in other realms too, outside of if you own grain in a physical facility. So I'm not saying that's the only way, but that's a big thing. And we talk about basis trading as a way to do that, as a way to capture that value of the space. Right? So you talk to people in different walks or even just in that business and what basis trading means to them. I think it's clear, right? I know what basis trading is. I got a podcast about it. It's great. I know all about it. Yeah. I know all about that basis. But anyways, it doesn't mean that to everyone that I come across is what I've learned.
Yeah. You had a good story. You had a recent experience with this, and it's this very eye-opening when you come across someone that has been in the industry a long time. And I've encountered this as well. And you throw out terminology, and they either didn't know what that term meant, or they didn't know how that term was to be understood properly, right. I should say.
Well, they just had a different.
And they shouldn't. There's no baseline saying they should know. That's not part of their business.
They have different names for
right.
different things,
yes.
And so you kind of blur the line. So at some point, you talk to somebody and you're like, they don't really do the basis trading, the grain merchandising thing. It's more of a cash business, and they back to back and everything. And so you talk about, well, basis trading, right? You know what that means. Well, obviously they don't do it.
Right.
So what am I even? Shame on me to start with.
Just back up.
So, anyways, but yeah, it's funny. I've run into this actually a lot. Is when you say you need to be basis traders, they're like, we just do storage, and we'll buy it cash, and we do storage, and that's it. That's all we do. And for a while there, I'm like, yeah, okay, a lot of people do that. Like I don't know what the problem is, but what I found as I dig and ask more questions, which you should always do, to really understand where people are coming from, is because they might have spread charts that are upside down for all you know, right?
You got to set them straight and then stand on them.
But yeah, they're like, well, we did a basis contract with one of our farmers a few years back. It just didn't work. It didn't work any good for anybody. And so what they think of when you say basis trading is now you have to change your operation to where every time you buy from a farmer, it's on a basis contract.
Right. Basis only contract.
Which is crazy. And that's not what I mean at all. And there are plenty of great basis traders who would rather die than offer a basis contract to their farmers.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so while you can basis trade using basis contracts, it's definitely not an essential piece of it. And most of the time, not a piece of it at all.
Right. Well, and that brings up another point. The whole idea of, you're saying they'd rather die than you use basis contracts. I think that statement gets misinterpreted all the time. Some people will hear that and say, well, why? Don't you understand how basis works? It's fine. You're the elevator. You're going to make all kinds of money. It'd be great. You're providing service to your farmer. True. The rub comes in the policies of how those contracts are completed. So what I mean by that is if it's a harvest time delivery and it's just corn and it's versus December futures, well, if you let the guy roll for however long till he prices, say it's 2 years. Well, if there's a carry every month when that rolls off, the basis does nothing but go down because it's adjusted by the carry spread. The elevator's fine. It's protected. They've made their margin. They've sold it probably a long time ago and made their margin. Mm-hmm. All of the costs incurs to the farmer. And then when he finally decides to price, even if he understood how the mechanics work, there's a difference in him telling you, I understand the mechanics work, and when he comes into price and he's rolled it into 10 carry futures rolls and then seeing what his price is. It's not that he all of a sudden doesn't understand it, but he's not happy with how it turned out. Even though you could have been telling him all along, hey, this is going to lower, this is going to lower, this is going to lower. That's where people don't want to do it is because of the customer relationship potential to damage that. And it does come back to the elevator's policy on how many rolls they allow. Absolutely it does. It's that kind of that old saying, you give them all the rope they want, they'll still hang themselves, type of thing. It's kick the can down the road type of thing. And you think it's being, giving the guys lots of options. Yeah, you are, but is it in the best interest of them? So that's when you hear people don't want to offer for basis contract, that's the reason why. There could be others, but I think that's the main reason why is the potential customer relationship ramifications of that.
You mean like when they say things like, those don't work? That's what they mean?
Yes.
Yeah. They had to roll them, and it got nasty. Yeah, a lot of times. Or that just a guy set a basis and then and could have, if he'd have just sold it then, would have had a better price than waiting on the price went down and he used the old basis and it didn't work. It didn't work.
Yeah.
Well, it worked. It worked.
Yes.
It did what it was supposed to do. But anyways, you run into folks, they have different perspectives, different ideas, and why should they know how a grain elevator operates if they don't operate a grain elevator, right? But they're in the world, and you think like, yeah, they do. And like I ran into a guy recently. He just had a general perspective on guy's a farmer, very successful, and so he's good at what he does. I'd like to be as good at what I do as he is at what he does, right? And I explained the concept, and he's like, I don't elevate. You tell me this how elevators. I thought elevators anytime they buy it, they sold it to somebody.
And he was referring to cash grain,
right? They just sell it to the ethanol plant or wherever as soon as we buy it. And now I will say there are elevators that do that.
It's called back-to-back.
And anyways, so it can be done and everything, but he thought that's 100% of what they did.
And he's halfway right in that they do sell something. If they're hedgers, they sell futures.
Right.
Because that's the placeholder for the cash grain until the point comes where they want to sell the cash grain. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot of this out there. It's kind of halfway understood
right.
And a lot of it, I think, is chalked up to this perpetual idea that, and the bigger the grain company, the more it gets attributed to them. They got to be doing some really black magic stuff with futures and options to be doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's really not that complicated. Now, don't get me wrong. Some companies make it way more complicated than it needs to be. They absolutely do.
Yeah,
they shoot themselves in the feet constantly doing this. But the stuff is pretty simple. The steps involved are very simple.
Yeah.
There's nothing complex about it.
Yeah, and honestly, good on that guy, because a lot of farmers think, even if they would give it much thought past their original thought, but a lot of farmers think, beans at harvest was $10, and then in February it was $13. Dadgummit, these elevators just made $3 off of me. What? No, they didn't at all, because they were, like Roger's saying, when you buy the grain, you're immediately selling, whether it's a cash sale or a future sale. That is a good instinct of, I don't want to be at risk of what this price does. It changes all the time. Nobody knows what it's going to do. So anytime I get a cash position, I want to do the opposite. And so the futures let you do it a lot more quickly and efficiently. But that also allows you to establish a basis position, and then you can trade that basis from there.
Which you need, because you need time outside of harvest for opportunity to develop to make your margin. If you could do it all in the same day, there'd be no need to hedge anything, right? You would just buy cash, sell cash, and be done.
Yeah. And so people do.
Right. Yeah, some people
and
do.
a lot of times when they do that, they're like buying it across the scale at harvest and making a JFM sale. And so you say like, there's no back-to-back margin at harvest, or it's like 10 cents. They'll never be able to afford it. Well, there's a little bit of a carry in the basis and a spread to like JFM. So they do back-to-back and kind of what we call selling the carry and stuff. But it's a very limited amount of
you're locked into whatever the spread is that day.
The actual basis potential. You're locked into that, but you're also locked into what their bid is that day, which may not be that great.
Which if the buyer is astute in structuring their bids, it's not going to be much of an advantage at that point, you know.
Yeah.
So,
but it'll be more than selling it for shipping it next week or something. But
I will say a point too on that. It's not just farmers that have this mindset. Mm-hmm. I know we say that as a placeholder, but it's folks that work in crop insurance. It's folks that work in inputs, folks that sell grain bins, the folks that are on the other side of the futures market, for lack of a better term, speculators, the guys taking the other sides of our positions. Thank you very much for your service. We need the liquidity. We appreciate it. But they don't even know half the time, you know. So, and again, it's not their business to know, but I think it helps everyone when you do understand what's going on, as opposed to assuming shenanigans or something or whatever it is, you know, right off the cuff.
And even if you don't assume shenanigans, just assuming they must just sell it immediately to the ethanol plant or whatever. Like, it's not terrible perspective to have. At least you don't think the elevator just made $3 off me because the price went up $3.
They might have made $4 because maybe they did something better earlier.
But anyways, to your point, a lot of times it's people at the grain elevator that's not the merchandiser that has no idea.
Right. Within the same company.
Yeah. It's the bookkeeper in the office.
Or the board of the co-op board.
People doing the scale tickets, people at the dump, like
the CFO.
Nobody. I'm not saying everybody needs to be an expert basis trader that's at the grain elevator.
You need to know why you're doing the general how our
idea.
Business is working.
Yeah, the general idea.
Yeah.
Is we don't make money off of the price. Stay price neutral, and we want the elevator wants the farmer to sell the best price. I was talking to a guy earlier today, and he's got a pretty substantial direct ship business and everything, and he's made a go of it for a long time. Very good trader, cash grain trader, and helps a lot of people. And he said, really there were very few days overall where he really had to tap into his working capital to cover margin calls, because his goal was always not that nobody knows where the high price is, but general seasonally most years, May, June, we get a little rally, and that's a really good opportunity, and you sell some of it. Mm-hmm. And he was helping guys do that. He says, so for the most part, my guys, 8 out of 10 years, my guys sell better than what it was at harvest time. So when you do that as an elevator, you're hedging on your margin call situation, like farmer sells at $5 and the price drops to $4, that's great for the grain elevator or the basis trader, because now my futures positions,
because you made $1,
have gained a lot of value. I haven't made $1, but the farmer sold before it dropped. He got that, but until he delivers and I have to write him his check, I have that extra cash in my futures account. And so I say all that because it's way better for the elevator if every one of their farmers sold the top price of the year to them. Yes. The highest possible futures price, because that means my futures account is always going to be a net positive. Right. Whereas if my farmers sell the worst price of the year, I'm going to be paying margin calls all the time.
Yes.
And it's very costly. So for an elevator, it's definitely in my best interest that my farmers sell high prices.
Right. If you look at the interest outlay for an elevator, if they could buy all this at the highs in June, say, most years, and then the market, goes down into harvest and stays low for a while until April, May of the following year, the elevators has financial obligation on those hedges on what they're buying ahead of harvest, coming into harvest and paying for the grain. They're still financing the hedges, but now they're also financing the fact they paid for the grain. And they carry that for another several months until they sell it. So there's those costs in there. And, the hedging is what allows them to do what the market says and to recoup that cost. But this whole idea of, just because here's what the harvest prices are and what it's done, that equals your margin. That's
Right.
usually not how it works. Unless it's just a wildcatter out there saying, I'll buy here and I'll see what my gut says and I'll sell here later. And that's fine. I mean, if you want to do that, go for it.
A wildcatter?
Probably. Isn't
Is
that
that
what
a
they call it in
K-State
the
thing?
oil wells?
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's EMAL, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But, so there's that cost involved on that to buy the grain on contract, to hedge it, and then to pay for it at harvest and keep carrying it. So that's the cost involved for the elevator on side of it, So there's always cost. There's always a cost. Just like the farmer, there's always a cost involved with him not having the grain marketed by the time it comes out of the combine. There's a cost involved somewhere until it's priced. That holds true for any bushel until it's sold, no matter who's got the bushel.
Right. The big take home is, if you didn't know before, elevators make their money off of basis, off of service, basis, spreads,
discounts,
that sort of thing. Discounts.
Probing before the scale.
But it's not off of what the price does, because that's no way to try to operate a business.
Lenders don't like that.
No.
Typically.
No. So, that'd be tough to secure financing. And you could say, well, they just lie to the bankers or whatever. Who doesn't lie to the banks? Well, I
mean, farmers do, I hear.
That stuff comes through. You see it in the financials. You can lie to them. Some of them go along with it and let you lie to them, even though they know better.
It's a wild deal out there.
Here's the deal. And I love all the bankers. They keep everything going. Don't get me wrong, but it's all about collateral. If you got 3,000 acres with them with 90% equity, and you want to lie to them about what you're specking on, they're like, all right, well, I think we'll be okay because
exactly.
I got enough collateral. Yeah, sure you are. So, anyways, but I digress.
It's a good digress.
Okay,
so that's clear.
Yeah. Next,
perfectly.
Quick little aside. There was a poll, an internet poll that you wanted to talk about or discuss or bring up?
A survey poll, not a physical poll.
Okay, yeah.
I was trying to figure out how that worked. Yes, a Twitter poll, if you will, X poll, whatever. Mm-hmm. That sounds really bad, X poll. And yes, so it was a follow-up to last episode.
Okay.
When we were talking about spreads, specifically your outlandish claim that ranch was a spread. We put it up to the people. We went all Elon Musk on everybody and said, what say you, Twitter users? And all of them, all 21 of them voted 70% plus.
77%. I checked right before.
Ranch is not a spread.
Mm-hmm.
Vox Populi.
Mm-hmm. Well, what does that mean? Are you the new Pope? I heard he was American. Is that Latin?
It is Latin. You're very
good. Good.
The people have spoken. The people's voice.
Uh-huh.
So.
Right. So I have to accept the results as a free American.
And yes,
that loves democracy.
The internet has spoken.
And the Latin language.
It's the thing.
Okay.
It's law now, basically.
Okay. Good.
I'm just glad we put that behind us.
Yeah. So. I mean, I didn't realize what I was stepping into. I thought we were just
stepped in a big old pile of rotten ranch.
I said something about spreads. He starts talking about condiments. I listed a condiment, but we weren't talking about condiments. There's a difference, is what you're telling me, what people are telling me. But
that's what the people are saying.
Listen, 22%, 23% or whatever it was, did agree with me. So I get that.
I say that, but I'm almost positive that the Elevators Cut Twitter handle and Jason Wheeler Twitter handle both voted yes.
Well, I did, but
because there was 2 yes votes instantly.
I can't control what Randy does. Randy loves the controversy, as the English say.
Just look at him; he's all controverting over there.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that was our side. We'll come back inside now.
Okay.
What have we got? This is great. You got a bookmark ribbon and everything. This is
thank you.
This is high end.
No expenses spared for this show, buddy.
Thank you, Phil.
I was something I was considering as driving down the roads that I'd like mainly your input on.
Oh, okay,
Roger.
I'm happy to do that.
And that is, a lot of people I know work for co-ops, and it's a great system. And a lot of the commercial grain space in this country are running some form or another by co-op.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an excellent system that does it. And so a lot of people work for them. And a big point for co-ops to hire employees, to keep employees, is they have a strategic advantage, a couple, but the big one is their retirement program,
mm-hmm.
right? It's very good. I always hear a lot about it. Never been a part of it. Sounds like a good thing to be a part of, though. When I've heard it explained to me, I usually forget all the deets by the next day, but I know it's really good. I do remember. That's the thing I do remember. It's like, that's pretty good.
It's like some kind of rules back from the 80s or something on
like,
it, but it's, if you can retire from a co-op, it's a pretty good deal, I'm pretty sure.
They got a great retirement pension like thing going on. So, and you can move from co-op to co-op and still, be getting credit towards that and everything. It's a great system, and not a lot of places. Definitely anywhere you work in the private, a lot of private industry, you got a 401k and you donate to yourself. Maybe they match a little, maybe they don't. But so this is a really good deal. Is the co-op retirement plan. So that being said, why is everyone caught off guard so much when people actually do retire at a co-op? It's the one thing they're like, come here and you'll be able to retire in an excellent way. And then they're like, okay, I did it. You're right. I'm ready to retire. They're like, what? We are not ready for this. They're not ready in any way for people to retire. Why is that?
Because humans are involved is a simple answer.
Man.
I think, having worked for a co-op for a few years of my career, I didn't retire from the co-op at the time because I wasn't retirement age.
That's right. You worked at a co-op.
Yeah.
That's why I asked you.
And, there you go.
How much credit did you get?
Minus something. I think it was a carry credit. Anyway.
Contango.
Yes. Backwarded, dated. I think it's just this idea of, it's kind of like the backyarditis, which is, if you go talk to people, farmers or elevators, whatever, in a certain part of the country, and let's say they got a big crop coming along and it's looking good, and they just assume, well, this is the way it is everywhere. Big price is probably going to get low. It's going to get even lower because look how big the crop is. Well, in your area, yes. A form of that happens, I think, at a co-op, at least my experience was with the board, and they're there for the long haul. They don't retire. They're going to, die farming probably, or they might, in a rare occasion, have a succession plan and someone will take over and they will completely step away, but that just doesn't happen. They're always, most of the time, still somewhat involved. And that's fine. That's just how things do like that. But I think when they see that, and then the person that maybe worked with them for a long time, the GM or the merchant or whatever, has made this decision to retire, I think the caught unawares is like, yes, everybody knows some people retire that, work at a company, but this idea of like, well, you're doing it now or doing it before me or whatever it may be, but there's this idea of like, well, that's change and we don't want change. Yeah. It also might have to do with the fact of maybe they've shopped around and looked and see what it costs to replace that GM because they haven't had one to hire one in 20 years. And that's a little bit of a sticker shock. But like you were saying earlier, what tends to happen is then they put the guilt trip on the guy to stick around a little while. Well, you got to train someone. You got to do this. You can't leave us high and dry like this. And the guy's got relationships. Like, yeah, I don't want to leave body mostly in a bind and this stuff, and I'll do what I can. And you see this stuff get drug out for years, right? I mean, you see it all the time too. Yeah. You go around and seeing folks, but there's something with this idea of, and you can tell them and tell them and tell them, but until it actually happens, then it's like, whoa, no, wait up. Don't spring this on us. I've been telling you for 2 years I'm going to retire.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's that. I think it's just this idea of this juxtaposition of them seeing their career and this person, maybe they've worked for a long time in their career, and then they're seeing this transition for them, for this other person, but not themselves, that kind of is this shock. I could be dead wrong. That's just my limited experience with the few years I had at a co-op and seeing how boards can interact with GMs or other employees. And I think it's just back down to expectations, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, it's just, that they get caught completely off guard. And even in the case, like you're saying, guys, a lot of them, because they get it. Like, it's going to be hard to transition. We got to find people. It's hard to maybe find somebody either locally or get somebody to move here that could do this. And they want to give them a heads up. So, give them a heads up. And yeah, a lot of times the board's just like in one ear, out the other.
Right.
They're like,
right.
yeah, but that's a long way away.
Right. We'll have to worry about it when it gets there.
They'll bring it up every time.
Table the motion until the next meeting.
And what ends up happening, like you said, is now the guy says, all right, I'm retiring in 3 years. And 3 years comes, and we haven't got anybody. Can you stay a little longer once we find somebody?
Can we pay you more?
Blah, blah,
do this.
And then before you know it, now instead of 3 years, now he's been there 5 years.
Right.
And then maybe they finally get somebody. He trains them for 6 months, and he goes out the door. And then this new person stays for 2 years, and then they call the guy and quits.
Yeah,
and then call the guy back, and he's like, I guess, I just been fishing anyways. I guess I can come in. And they're like, well, what if we're sorry, maybe you just come in for 3 days a week for half a day.
Right.
And, we'll pay you what we used to pay you, but anything you want. And it just gets drug on. And anyways, you got to let these guys. This is why you recruited them. You recruited them because you had this great retirement plan. They could get out and go live life. And anymore, we all know the stories of guys that, they just work. And then they finally take their retirement. And
they just kill over.
Even like they get some health problems. They're like, there's things they really wanted to do, they really can't physically do anymore.
Right.
And so the retirement isn't what they kind of built it up to be. And you don't want to... nobody's trying to make that happen. Everybody likes each other here in this situation. They want the best for the GM that's done so well for him for a long time, and they're trying to do good by him. But what ends up happening is you ruin the people's retirements and stuff. And
there's a lack of planning.
It's kind of sad. Yeah.
It's not like it's kind of like someone dying, right? I mean, we're all going to die.
Mm-hmm.
You acknowledge that, and you plan accordingly, right? Well, people are probably going to retire from an elevator. God, I hope they can. You should be able to retire from the elevator eventually. And, it's going to happen. Make some plans for it. But too often it gets, you're putting out fires for, we got to, put up a new bin here, or, discount schedules suck, or whatever it is. And then the really important things don't get done until it's, it's fire sale time.
Yeah. You got to have communication on big picture, long-term stuff. I'd say at every board meeting you have.
And it doesn't happen.
About it.
That doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen at all. And most of the time, the majority, it's like the 80-20 principle. Like you use all the time that gets used at the board meeting is on stuff probably shouldn't even be talking about at a board meeting. Trying to micromanage.
And it's not like it's done on purpose too. Yeah. I think it's just inertia. It's guys get on and they don't really know. I'm on the board now. What do I do? Well, you show up and you talk about things. Well,
here's this list of numbers. What should I ask about them?
What's the expectation? Sure. And people have to form their own expectation. Well, I guess I need to do this thing. Seems important. And it's just because there's not a formal process in place of bringing people on board, whether it's the GM, merchandiser, the board members, whatever it is. A lot of places just assume they'll learn by osmosis, and they do, but it's usually painful and not the greatest outcome. That does happen. People do stumble and figure their way out. I'm living proof of that. But it's not the best way.
Yeah.
But it does happen a lot. I mean, it happens a lot. And we're picking on co-ops here, but it happens in the private business world too. Private elevators, same thing. The owner thinks the merchandiser case is going to, they live local. We're probably going to be here forever. Yeah. They don't know one ever asked future plans. They're just like, I'll just assume you're going to be here. And then they up and leave. And they're like, well, you can't leave. I got nothing. How am I going to do this? I was going to let you buy into the company eventually. Well, you never told me that. And, this whole idea of, it happens all businesses, farms, the succession planning, same type of thing. It's like there's an event that will happen. What are you doing to address it before it happens?
Fun story I just heard this morning was about a guy who you would think is doing the right thing, all the things we say to do. He's letting the owners know, hey, I want to retire in about 3 years, so just so you guys can get it, because I've put in a lot of time here. I love the company. I've a lot of hard work to make this a successful company, and like the customers and everything, and I want to make sure it goes on. Grain elevator's a huge part of a community. In most cases, it's a huge part of the economy, and if done right, it's a great thing, and a pillar of the community. Helps a lot of people. Anyways, so you want to give them a heads up and do all that, and like you said, most of the time it's like, okay, sure, I got 3 years to think about it. I won't think about it. But in this case, ownership said, if you're already thinking about retirement, your head's halfway out the door. So why don't you just pack up your stuff and leave?
That's unbelievable. It's very believable, but it's still unbelievable.
That was a wild take. As hard as it is to find people, and then this guy who'd been around for a long time and genuinely cared so much that he wanted to be doing the right thing. Unreal, man. So
it happens. It's nuts. It's humans, man. It's humans dealing with humans, right? It's back to your people playing different games, right?
That's right.
What's happening?
Yeah. So I mean, that's what makes it hard, right? Because in any business, whether it's a private business, whether it's a grain business or anything at all, it's good to have like these long-term plans and like how, and everybody, we all got eyes and calendars. And we know, like, hey, this guy, I don't know how much longer he's going to be around, And
death lotto.
All of a sudden, I don't have to pay for his insurance anymore. It's coming from Medicare's, or I don't know how all that works. But anyways, however that works, I hope to
apparently
get there one day.
Medicaid's not about to work anymore, is what I hear. So
whatever.
Don't have to worry about that.
Anyways, they get to that point or close to that point, and nobody wants to say, I should say nobody, but you got to have good communication about this. But it's hard because, you don't want to be the guy that's like, hey, just so you guys know, here's my plan. And then they're like, get your stuff and get out of here,
That's
or whatever.
Crazy.
Or, well, maybe we should phase you out sooner than that. And maybe we should do this or that. Yeah. Like it's a bit of a risk to jump out there and say that. So, I don't know. You got to like set,
it's expectations, right?
What's the, like when our heads of state talk to each other, but they have to have things ahead of time, come on, Roger, you know these
pre-gaming?
Words. Yeah.
Drinking before you go out drinking?
Well, maybe they do that too. It's probably a good bit of that.
Translators? What
Preconditions, I guess, in having this discussion. Like, hey, man, I just need to know we're in the truth tree with the nest and all that stuff where everything's okay to say and nobody's going to get, take rash actions. We just need to have an open conversation. So anyways, it's but I don't know. You got to broach the subject, and the reason we say all this is because we see it a lot in the grain business and in the grain elevator business especially, is like we got to transition to this next generation and do it well, or
and that's the next generation of ownership, not and genealogical talent. Generation. Yeah, it's management. This whole of management of all these things. If you want the business, and there's this idea of stewardship. I think for sure in the private companies, they want someone to be stewards of what they built. So sometimes there's a big hurdle there of can someone live up to whatever those expectations are, and so it's not a one size fit all thing, but it's definitely something worth talking about at least once every so often.
Yeah, at
any company.
Yeah, and maybe the best way is to have somebody kind of independent or from outside helping in that situation. And I will say, like, we've talked about Jeff Reardon, have Jeff Reardon on. Hopefully, one day I want to have somebody in studio with us on video.
Get a bigger table.
No, nobody wants to be seen on screen,
including us.
We're gonna AI people in if they're not careful. We're gonna make them babies. And but anyways, but Jeff, he's been on the show.
Phrasing.
So he helps folks with this sort of stuff. But not just that, but like if you're worried about your co-op and stuff, and like reach out to us, because just like you get thrown on a co-op board, you don't know what the numbers to ask.
Right.
Like I get these financial statements, I've never seen these before or know what I should be worried about in them. So Jeff does a lot
What's
of
a normal margin? What should the elevator be making? All
So
these
Jeff does a
things.
lot of that, like training and know where certain numbers should be and all that. So reach out to
Yeah.
us. We're glad.
And
to
both
help.
of us have been in those types of meetings where you're
Yes,
trying to train
for
up
sure.
boards or educate, even ownership because they've done something a different way or they bought a new business. I mean, it's not complicated.
Yeah.
But it needs to be done. The longer you put it off, the harder it is to do.
Correct.
But getting people on it all the way back around now to our terminology thing, getting people on understanding what words mean. How does the business function? How's it meant to function? What's the value here? What are we doing to accumulate that value? Those are the things, but too often it's not always what gets talked about, and maybe it shouldn't be all the time, but it needs to occasionally for sure.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. And if you're a board member listening to this and you think, well, people at our company aren't thinking this, you have employees that are concerned about
Absolutely
who's going to run this thing when Daddy Warbucks here finally gives up the ghost and steps down or whatever it is. It's been here for 40 years. You definitely have employees thinking about that. They're wondering, who am I going to have to end up working for, or are they going to make this transition work to where this is still an ongoing entity? Am I going to have a job? If you think your employees aren't thinking about it, you're dead wrong.
right. And you're like, well, we can make all plans we want, but if somebody leaves or gets hit by a bus, well, what if they don't? What if all those crazy things don't happen and just like normal things happen? Are you ready for it?
Right.
It's like, that's not an excuse not to be ready for normal.
Exactly.
Like the regular thing. Like be ready for the regular thing too. And communicate it to people so that they know what's going on. But like you said, we have, so whether you're thinking about succession planning, for a private company, for a co-op, and how that all looks, we've definitely helped people do that before.
Mm-hmm.
So feel free to reach out to us at White Commercial if we do. I don't plug White Commercial that much, but this conversation kind of went there. But so we definitely will love to help talk with you about it, and if there's a way we can help, and just offer you examples of experiences of how people have done it successfully that are similar to you, and you tweak it and make it work for you. But yeah, a lot of times that independent person, that way people are open to say what they actually think or plan without having
no reservations or less reservations.
Yeah.
This is the beauty of white labeling, right? It's just
that's right, man. It's independent third party. But so anyways, feel free. With that, the only other thing I had, we'll get into some other time, and by some other time I mean probably not at all, is autonomous AI-driven grain elevators. Are they coming? When are they coming? And all that stuff. We don't know anything about it, so we're not.
We're definitely going to talk about it then.
Makes sense.
Hey, someone's got to be the voice in the wilderness, right?
Yeah, that's right. Roger talks about what spreads are on a sandwich, and he doesn't know anything.
We give it up to the people on Twitter. They can tell us that. You can always know that the truth is out there. www.x.com.
There you go. http:// before all that. I don't know. Do you HTML, Randy? Randy does. He. Okay. He says /.
You forgot the S for secure too, but anyway.
Well, I don't. The security, that's just a false sense of security.
This has been cut for a while, by the way.
Yeah. Well, thanks, and we'll get back to you next time. And, have a good one out there.
Or don't.
We'll be back next time. As always, thanks for downloading and listening. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast and share it with folks you know in the business.
And if you'd like to reach out anytime about anything at all or have any show ideas, you can always find us on Twitter at ElevatorsCut. Follow us there, tweet at us, DM us, and we'll always respond.
Till next time, for Roger, I'm Jason.
For Jason, I'm Roger.
Thanks for listening to the Elevators Cut.
Out.